Hi everyone, and welcome to my review of Quantum of Solace, the 22nd James Bond film, and it's directed by Marc Forster. Um, Quantum of Solace. Where do we start? It's not one of the most popular Bonds. You could say that. Most people, don't really care for it too much. And it wasn't, it wasn't critically acclaimed. Like Casino Royale was. And I actually, remember going to see it at the cinema when it came out, and I remember not liking it, not caring for it. And actually, it's one of the only Bond films I've only seen. This is my second viewing all the way through on this rewatch, so that says it all. Because we got it on DVD shortly after it came out, and I never watched it all the way through. I just couldn't finish it. And it's just a Bond film that it's just so generic, and they're not well put together. But in the cinema, I remember just thinking, this opening action scene, so poorly put together. The editing is absolutely atrocious, and just how generic it is of a chase. It's not one of the most exciting chases, excluding the way it's been filmed and edited. But the way it's been edited loses all sense of geography, and the way they're trying to make it intense with these quick cuts. And I think they're actually, as well, they were trying to maybe go for a Bourne way of editing, Jason Bourne films, because they were really big, of course, just before this film. And I'm not a fan actually of Paul Greengrass's, the way his films, the two, Bourne 2 and 3 are edited at all. I think the first Bourne was, much better shot and edited. But yeah, this is like a poor imitation, and actually, this action scene in particular is absolutely dreadful. You cannot see anything that's going on. And as well, just random cuts, even just random cuts where he puts his foot on the pedal or something. So many different cuts within a minute. It's too much, and it loses. They were trying to make it more alive and intense through this, but it makes it more dead, lifeless. There's no energy in it, and it just wears out the scene. I think when you over edit a film like this without any sense of rhythm or timing. So I hate action films that are done like this. I think they're like some of the worst ways of doing action, when you overcut and you can't see anything that's going on. It can be done stunningly well, but this was overdone as well, the amount of cuts. And a lot of modern action films are doing this now. Like some of the Takens, and just a lot of action films in general. There's too many cuts, and it's in random spots as well, and you just can't see anything that's going on. Why film action? Especially in this film, there's some decent stunts obviously going on, but when they filmed it and edited it, you can't even see what's going on. So all the stunt work and everything that's going into it is wasted, and it's not a great way to start Bond as well. The way they freeze frame when he opens the boot of the car, the way it leads into them awful credits. So it's shameful. The actual titles themselves, poor design for me. Just Bond walking through different areas as well, and it's just generic. There's nothing really to praise about the credits, and the song is worse than the titles. Another Way to Die, performed by, I think it's Jack White and Alicia Keys. Dreadful. Probably the second or third worst Bond theme of all time for me, and it's just monotonous, grating. The chorus is really hurts your ears, or for me anyway, and does not have its place in a Bond. It's just terrible. I hate this theme. And the first half of this film, it's very clear this is a generic action film, and there's nothing that stands out really at all. we're introduced to the villain, played by the villain called Dominic Green. He's played by Mathieu Amalric. And what a generic villain. One of the worst Bond villains, unfortunately. The way we're introduced to this villain, it's just so generic. I never felt like an instant presence by him. It's an inconsistent character. His performance is not great, and the way the villain's been written is weak as well. One of the main issues as well. There's so many issues with this film, but the script. It was rumored that there was 3 screenwriters, and something happened with a strike or something. But anyway, Daniel Craig and Marc Forster had to actually sit down and finish, or at least contribute to the script. And that's nothing to, you can't blame Daniel Craig for that. He is an actor, and I'm sure actors can also be screenwriters and directors, but he shouldn't have had to do that. And it's just the whole way that there was 5 different screenwriters in the end, which there's been in the past, numerous screenwriters, but this one as well, it just seems so rushed, and that's probably why it's so inconsistent a lot of the time with the characters throughout the film. The writing, not a focused script, I don't feel. Casino Royale was so focused, it was pure vision coming through, channeled through the script and the directing, all coming together, but this feels all over the place. And you've not even, unfortunately, got action scenes to get you through it, really, because pretty much all the action in this film's bad. And it's mainly because of the editing and the way it's shot, but it's just a standard. It's not like they're trying at all. And yeah, because even if the stunts sometimes that happen are pretty decent, they're just ruined by the editing, the way it's been put together. And it just makes the pace of this film, go right down. Because the action scenes are boring. The story is boring. The way the exposition in the film, mainly due to the script, of course. There's nothing really compelling. When I rewatched this, I realised why I never liked it in the first place. It's fine if you do, of course. It's not like a loved Bond. I don't like this film. In the supporting cast, the Bond girl, Camille, played by Olga Kurylenko. She, one of the worst Bond girls for me, unfortunately. I just don't feel any connection between her and Bond, and as well, again, inconsistency in her character, and her motivations. They kind of went for a kind of emotional, tried to do an emotional backstory for her. It just didn't work, and her character I didn't like in this film. Performance weren't great, but as well, just some tonal breaks as well with her character. And yeah, there's another Bond girl, played by Gemma Arterton. She's called, she's never really referred to in the film, but she's Agent Strawberry Fields. Clear Beatles reference there. But yeah, a pointless character, really. She just shows up and then she's just out of it straight away, really. She doesn't add anything to the film. I don't see the point in her character. That's the thing with this film. A lot of the characters, they have no real contribution to the actual story, narrative. They continue some of the story of Casino Royale. It's kind of like a semi-revenge film, it turns into, but that's not done well at all. And fine if you want to carry on certain subplots or something from the film, but this just seems like they're relying on that as well. It's not really been followed up in a worthy way of following up how good Casino Royale pulled off all the plots, the different subplots. It just seems lazy in this film, and Mr. White returns as well. And it's just so pointless. I think that they should have just gone for their own sort of thing. instead of carrying on some of the stuff from Casino Royale, because it pales in comparison. The way it's executed, and I don't care if it was like latching onto stuff from a film I loved. You know, I did not love this film. I didn't care for the way that it was you know, advanced, because it wasn't, you know, nothing meaningful in this film. As well, you know, some moments where they tried to do that, some emotional moments they tried to do emotional moments. It's lost on me, because I could not care for this film. And Daniel Craig is still good in this film. He was absolutely masterful in Casino Royale. He's still good in this film, but I never really felt as much of a presence from him. And as well, he doesn't have people to play off of. Really, the Bond girl's weak, villain's weak, and you know, Jeffrey Wright returns as Felix, but the scenes with him feel very bland, not well written and not well shot. You know, put together. They bring back all these people, but they're not brought back in a meaningful way. And within this film, they don't have things going on that I can care for, really. And just, the first half of this film is just so bland. And there's some action scenes that are just so awful, the way they've been put together. And there's no real true drive for this film. You know, as well, Judi Dench, she shows up quite a lot in this film. Not in a she never really has a scene where it's meaningful, or she's actually got a point. It's like they're just dragging her along. It seems like they feel like they need to bring her along with Bond all the time. But Look at the World Is Not Enough, where they actually gave her a meaningful plot, subplot, and it contributed to how, you know, Bond's character and how his relationship with her, you know, was. In this film, she just uses a pointless character, really. Just because she's in the film more than Casino Royale does not mean it's warranted, because they didn't give her anything to really go with. And you know, Dominic Green is a poor villain. I never really cared for his motivations, and it's it's like it ends up on this this set piece in a desert, and so lackluster. You know, I did not care for that at all, and his motivations were never really exposed in a clear and meaningful way, and I just did not care for that. And that's one of the things that, you know, they focus more on, you know, throughout this film, the villain. But I could not care for the villain and his motivations, and it's not a good performance, you know, as well. So there's not much to praise about this film. We get into the second half, and there's this big plane scene, and that was pretty dreadful, actually. There's some really awful shots and zoom-ins and stuff that goes on that just completely ruins the action, and the whole, you know, finale within that last set piece in the desert. That's such a poorly designed actual like house, like mansion thing. There's no sense. It's very confusing the way it's been designed, that scene, that sequence. It's just such a poor. It's just a poor place to take place to do all the final action scenes in. Does not make sense geographically. I couldn't really praise anything there, other than a couple of the shots. You know, the way that it's kind of claustrophobic in a way at some points. They achieve that a little bit, you know, in that last, you know, and then final scenes. But generally, they don't shoot most of it in a meaningful way, and the motivations of the villain never really come together to mean anything. And as well, you know, there's meant to be this emotional moment with Bond and the Bond girl, but I didn't care for it really, and it's just wasted for me. I never really cared for any of the characters in this film, apart from Bond, but he wasn't really given anyone to, as I say, go off of. And while Daniel Craig gave a good performance still, probably his weakest performance. Not that it's bad or anything, of the 4 Bonds he's been in so far, I feel. And yes, the worst Bond film that he's been in so far. I think Spectre's better than this, and Skyfall for sure. Yeah, it's just a generic. It doesn't feel like Bond as well. That's another thing. It's not like Casino Royale where it earns its status and has the elements of Bond and the style and just the charm to it. It does not have charm. It does not have a meaningful romance. There's no heart to this film really. I think it's a cold film, and just very modernised as well. And the editing and everything, it never felt like Bond. I think actually it's, along with Die Another Day, the least Bond-like film. And that's saying something, you know. I think even A View to a Kill feels more like Bond than this. Maybe because of Christopher Walken, his villain and stuff. And there's a slight, you know, charm to some of them and campiness to some of them scenes in A View to a Kill. But this is just such a generic action film. And it's fine if you don't always automatically go for all the tropes of Bond, but this one just does nothing to actually advance Bond, and you know, it's just a poor action film on its own, and it means nothing to the franchise for me. And you know, as I say, all the characters, the director in this film is poor. I think it's not been brought together well. And there's not really a focus, you know, in this film. I can't really sense the vision coming through there. And yeah, it just slogs about, you know, this film, going from different scenes. The action scenes are also boring and poorly put together. They give me a headache because of the crap editing. And yeah, it's clearly such an unoriginal Bond in the way it borrows from the Bournes in the way it's edited. And stuff, and the way it relies on references, and you know, the way it lazily carries through the plot, some of the plots from Casino Royale, and does stuff there, and the way it uses its characters just because so that they're there, you know. Nothing to praise really for this film, apart from really Daniel Craig and some of the claustrophobicness of some of the scenes, I guess, but really this is a poor Bond film. I actually call it a bad film, and yeah, I won't be revisiting this much. It's just, yeah, it's such a generic action film, but a weak one, you know. It does the action. It's not good action at all, and there's no interesting characters really. None of the script comes through and gives the characters anything meaningful, and every act just slogs. I never felt really much emotions in any of the acts really, and yeah, just Quantum of Solace. There's a reason why it's not very loved, and I don't like this film at all. I think it's a bad film, slightly better than A View to a Kill, but what I prefer, you know, I'll reveal my ranking. I'll give this film a 38%. That's really low. And yeah, it's just as bad as I remembered, really. Just as boring and forgettable, and bland, generic action film. But it's not even standard action. It's pretty poor action. And villains, Bond girls, if you want. I suppose the best parts are some of the early on parts, actually. But it just, you know, as the film goes on, it becomes more and more boring, slogs, and just gives me more of a headache. You know, the music as well greets you in the credits, just a headache-inducing, you know, theme, and just gives me a headache from all the action, and just bores me to tears, really. This is not an interesting film. It's not compelling. It's not entertaining at all. Some of the stuff they went for, there's maybe one scene which isn't dreadful. It's not dreadful, one of the action scenes with Bond, you know, has the robe and stuff. It's done in an art house way though. It's very much inspired by the Bournes, the second and the third one. But it doesn't come off like that. It's not artistically shot, this film. The way it's edited is just so much, it's too far. too far, and it loses any sense of momentum because of that, and any drive, and the way that the script is so unfocused and so bland. This is a bit of a disaster, really. Definitely the weakest in, for me anyway, Daniel Craig's Bond filmography. But yeah, I wasn't too impressed with Spectre either, but this is just definitely the worst for me of the Daniel Craig's, and one of the worst Bond films of all time. It's among them, top 5 worst for sure. So yeah, 38%, bad film for me. Fine if you like it, of course. I just don't. I don't feel anything for this film, and it pisses me off. It gives me headaches. It just makes me feel. Doesn't make me feel anything. It's just another example of a really, really modern, generic action film. And yes, it's an absolute disgrace that this is a Bond film, and essentially a follow-up to Casino Royale in many ways. Lazy, boring, forgettable Bond. That is really quite harsh in the way it makes you feel through the editing and many things. Yeah, I don't like this film. I don't quite hate it, but I really don't like it, and one of my least favourite in the series. So thanks for watching, and next up is Skyfall. A much more positive review for that, let me tell you. And yeah, Marc Forster's Quantum of Solace, not a good film for me, but thanks for watching, and yes, as I say, it'll be a more positive review for Skyfall. Thanks for watching.